Hello, and welcome to Girls, Gays, and Animes, where it is safe to love what you love and love who you love. I'm your host, Valzaraptor, and I love when the vegan cheese actually melts on my food like it's supposed to. I'm here with my co host, T.
Hey, I'm T, and I absolutely love lying on rocks and baking in the sun like a lizard.
Ooh, I love some good lizard skin myself. So, today our topic is Howl's Moving Castle. We are a part of an exclusive book club.
Mm,
uh,
so exclusive.
I'm known to invite every woman that I meet in real life.
Do you look at books on occasion? Join our book club.
And that, just like that, you're in our book club. Perfect. So, our book club picked this past month to read Howl's Moving Castle. And of
hmm
course, everyone in our very exclusive book club has also already seen the movie at least 100 billion times.
hmm
So, a lot of our book club discussion revolved around comparing the book to the movie because we're all Miyazaki stands here. So we really jumped into that perspective. But I think what I want to do today is talk about the book itself first, because I do think that it was a really good, like, standalone book in itself, right?
Yes, definitely.
So for me, the book, it was a fairly quick read. I listened to the
hmm
audiobook. T, I think you did as well.
Yeah.
It was narrated in a British accent. Was yours?
Yeah, I think we had the same one, and
Okay.
she did try to put on different accents, but primarily British.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's always hard for me. Maybe just because I wasn't expecting it. Not
Yeah.
not speaking with a British accent myself. So when I load up an audiobook, it takes me like a minute for my brain to buffer to adjust to the
hmm
language or the dialect differences.
Well, and also, like you said, our frame of reference is the movie, and
Mm-hmm.
Sophie has somewhat of an accent, but not as heavy as the narrator of the book did. And in the movie, Christian Bale is playing Howl, and he is just speaking in his regular brace yourself for Christian Bale. I feel like he's one of those actors where if you ask someone how you know him, that's how you can judge that person. Like when you say, "Oh, what's your favorite Tim Curry movie?" and they tell you what their favorite Tim Curry movie is, like, I know people who know Christian Bale because of Howl or because of Batman or because of American Psycho.
What is your favorite Tim Curry, or how do you identify your Tim Curry?
I'm a cross between the original It series and oh my gosh, why am
Rocky
I blanking
Horror?
so hard? Yeah, Rocky Horror. I kept wanting to
Yeah.
say Tim Curry horror because he's perfect.
Yes, no. Okay. Yeah, that was the correct answer. You passed.
Excellent top tier.
I knew we were friends for a reason. Circling back, yes. So
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
book itself, what were your overall thoughts on the book? T, you're an avid reader.
Yeah, I like you said, I thought it was an easy read. I listened to it when I had time, and I didn't have an issue, getting through it or anything. It was easy to follow along with. Like I would stop for a little while and pick it back up, and I never really felt lost or anything. I honestly I love the movie. It has a special place in my heart, but I think I like the book interpretation of the world and the characters more so.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun to see them in a less serious, less noble kind of way, and I like the silliness that the book had. What about you?
I
How
like
did you
that
feel about the
I
book?
like that you described the characters as noble, because in some of the research, right, the
Mm-hmm.
author of the novel stated that in the Miyazaki film that her characters were presented as more noble. So yeah, I did feel like the characters were more relatable. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, and they were like relatable on multiple fronts because it wasn't just like, oh, I'm in like a silly, goofy mood. Like
Mhm.
they got like annoyed with each other and they bickered and they picked on each other and they were overly dramatic, but in the kind of way that like when you're in that situation, you're also that same type of over dramatic. And it
Mhm.
just that was I think that was one of the things in our book club that we talked about a lot leading up to it as well as during the actual discussion where Howl in the book, well, I mean in the movie he's a drama queen to an
Yeah.
extent, but in the book it is like beyond drama. Like he
Mhm.
is sick and he is shaking the castle. He is throwing an absolute tantrum. Like it is affecting the neighboring towns. Like he is swearing that this is the end of his life. He's
Oh,
simply
and
going to
spoiler
perish.
warning for the book and movie if you haven't a little too late, but spoiler warnings all around. In the book, spoiler warning. In the book, one of my favorite conniptions that he throws, his little fit, when they all have to evacuate the castle, they have to evacuate the town, and they have to go to the beach because he is throwing such a tantrum that he's like shrieking. And everyone in the town thinks that the castle's about to explode. And like previously stated, Sophie is much more sassy in the book. And she's just like, no, he's just being a child and we can't get anything done today because of him.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. So I love how direct Sophie is with
Mm-hmm.
Howl in the book. Um, going through some of the things with Sophie, obviously like her appearance is different. In the book
Yes.
she's got red hair. I think her old lady form is more thin and frail
Mm-hmm.
than granny mode like it is in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Some other just like character differences so that people can kind of visualize Howl's clothes. Like this is obviously from the movie, but in the book, his wardrobe is different, and we'll talk more about that in a sec. But like Michael's older, the dog is there's a dog, but it's a different dog. Uh,
Yeah, the whole dog situation is different.
whole dog situation's different. The turnip character is
Mm-hmm.
there, vastly different backstory. Sophie has two sisters in the book, one sister present in the movie. Still has the stepmother thing going on. She
Mm-hmm.
still is a hatter, works at a hattery, hat shop. Um, and then obviously there's the Witch of the Waste, but her character is also vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
And her how she acts as well as how she looks, movie compared
Yeah.
to the book.
And a lot of characters in the movie were kind of combined from
Hmm.
characters in the book to make somebody different or like a vaguely similar character that's not quite similar. There were bits and pieces of that throughout the movie. Once we sat down and read the book
Hmm.
and we were able to compare notes, we were like, oh, that's vastly different.
Yeah. One thing that I know was really interesting at the end of the book
Hmm.
um, was when Howl, because Sophie does still turn into an old lady in the book, just like she does in the movie, and it
Hmm.
is by the hand of the Witch of the Waste. The difference is it's heavily implied in the book that Sophie stays an old lady because Sophie wants to be an old lady in the book.
Hmm.
But it's stated by Howl, he's like, yeah, the whole time you've been here, I've been trying to change you back into a girl, but
Yeah.
you're fucking stubborn. So everything that I've tried to do, like your idol magic, because she's got
Hmm.
fairly decent magic powers unbeknownst to herself at the time, she's just her idly wanting to be this old lady and hide. And I know a lot of it is because again, like similar to in the movie, Hal has this reputation of being, you know, eating hearts or capturing women or
Hmm.
whatever this thing is. So she wants to be an old lady in that regard, but at a certain point, like it does seem like she just likes being a crotchety old lady.
Yeah, I think they kind of mention that she speaks things into existence.
Hmm.
And by thinking about or saying something out loud, it happens. And at a certain point, she just kind of accepts that she's an old lady. Like the Witch of the Waste is still the cause of her being an old woman in
Hmm.
both scenarios. But she just is like, okay, I guess I'm old now and I'm going to be old. And there are times where she's like, oh, yeah, like she looks at Howl and she's like, oh, this like mid 20s young man. And whereas before she was 18 and saw him as, a much more adult person than she was at the time. So her thinking changes as she's being an old lady. And she just kind of like is making herself an old lady by thinking the thoughts that she's having and going through the experiences and just accepting things the way that they are.
And on Howl being, on their first meeting, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
movie, he's like trying to like save her from these like little soldier guys
Yep.
who are trying to pick her up. But in the book, that is Howl. He is a
Yeah.
menace.
Yeah, in the book, he's like flirting with her and trying to walk her home, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is so strange. I don't like this." And then later comes
Ew.
to realize, she's like, "Oh my gosh, he almost ate my heart." And he's like, "I was just trying to walk you home. There's dangerous people out there." And she's like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
you.
you." She needs like a little spray.
Yes. That is definitely how I would imagine them interacting in real life, is just like having like little like, hey, you
Yep.
need to chill out, bud.
I
Um
also, speaking of how they
yeah.
interacted, the banter of all of them in the book, it made me think of more of a found family, even than more so than the
Mhm.
movie did, because they do kind of become a pseudo family in the movie, but just the way that like Michael and Calcifer, in addition to Sophie and Hal, all speak to each other, they definitely form this family bond that stood out to me more so in the book than it did even in the movie.
I think I agree. I'm wondering if that has something to do with the sisters existing
Mm-hmm.
in the books versus the movie, because in the books there's like a time frame where Michael, who's 15 in the books, and
Mm-hmm.
not a little baby child, uh, he's courting one of Sophie's sisters, and then it's also implied that Howl is also going after one of her sisters, even though that's not actually what was happening. And
Yeah, it's like a red herring scenario.
yeah, and so I think because of that piece of it, maybe I think that piece played a lot into like them getting closer. Um, but I think part of it too is in the beginning, Hal was kind of like distant from everyone, like even Michael, and he's giving Michael these like
Mm-hmm.
stupid tasks, and Michael's like, I don't know how to do this. Like he's supposed to be teaching me these things, and Sophie's like, well, I'll help you, being Sophie, and through that we find a lot of different things. Like we learn more about the stars that way, and then we
Mm-hmm.
also learn that way through him helping her, uh, through her helping him rather, that Howl is actually from Wales.
Yeah. He was a Welsh boy who was working on his PhD and he didn't like that anymore, so he discovered magic and he GTFO.
He not only gave up his PhD to pursue magic, but he also gave up playing rugby.
Yes, that's one of my favorite scenes when he goes to hang out with the boys and he comes back drunk out of his mind.
He's just a rugby bro. Come on.
Insert fan art of him here, of him in his rugby
I will
outfit.
find it and I will clip it for everyone. Don't worry.
Please play seductive music over it as well. Excellent, top tier.
So yeah, that was interesting, right? Because like when you think of Howl in the movie,
Hmm.
he's this like long hair, suave, like you said, noble. And
Mm-hmm.
then you think about him just being this PhD dropout brat who like just got drunk and played rugby with his bros, and like now he's a wizard with a 15-year-old apprentice who he could not care less about. It's
Mm-hmm.
it really kind of sets the picture a bit better than just being like, oh well, they look kind of different and they have like different backstories. So I think that
I think also, if I had read this book when I was younger, I don't know if I would have liked Book Howl as much. Because
mhm.
when you're younger, you're like, you want that movie version of how you're like, oh, this noble, dapper guy, he's gonna come in and sweep me off my feet. And it's like, no, I like the one who's I like the flawed one. I like the one who's complaining and literally screaming down the stairs about how nobody loves him and he's gonna die all alone because he has the common cold.
Yeah, it's the whimsy versus the reality version is kind of what it feels
Mm-hmm.
like. Um, on that though, it's interesting because to your point, the banter was really good, and the way that you mentioned how it's kind of like they made their own family out of the characters in the book. It reads really well for a book that was released in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think they still did an excellent job with banter. I don't know how else to
Yeah.
describe it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel dated. If I didn't know the
Mhm.
time period that it had been written in, I would have no clue. There was
Yeah.
nothing, and I know the world building and the setting help with that because it is a fantasy world. It's not like they do mention in the book when Howl goes to Wales, he has his family. He's got for those who haven't read, he has a sister and a niece and a nephew that he is constantly checking in on to make sure they're okay back in Wales. And they mention that his nephew is playing video games, but they don't say what kind. They don't say what system it's on. So it could be any time period that those would exist in. And it, like you said, the banter and everything, the setting, it lends to a timeless setting. It lends to a timeless book.
That's a good point. So I have an art book with from Howl's Moving Castle, and it talks about at the beginning. I'm trying to remember the phrasing of how it was. Here it is. Howl's Moving Castle is set in a world conceived by the late 19th century European neo futurist painter where magic and science coexist. That is not the world that the book takes place in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean I pictured like kind of what the movie was going for,
Mm-hmm.
like that little quaint European town vibe. Like that's what I was picturing when I was reading the book, but just not modern, like
Less
not like it
steampunk.
was when he went to Wales. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. No, I agree. It felt like a quaint European town, like in the main settings, and then Wales felt like a little more current.
Yes.
Like maybe the quaint European town was like set back a few centuries.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the
Yeah,
vibe that I was getting.
but it wasn't like a steampunk futuristic. Like I didn't get that throughout any of it.
Hmm.
So there was that piece
That
that
also
was
plays into the castle. How
mm-hmm,
you we the
right.
the castle in the book was described as more of a fortress that was
Mm-hmm.
just kind of floating around, whereas
Yeah.
in the movie the steampunk aspect
Mm-hmm.
came in. It was constantly like puffing out smoke here and there. It had the cool legs, spider looking diddly bops that were diddly bop bop bop, scooting it all around the countryside, and it definitely had more of that steampunky sciency aspect to it compared to the book.
Right. And I don't know if that has to do with strictly Miyazaki or if it
Hmm.
has to do with the fact that he had to hire two creative art directors for this film in order to execute his vision. So somewhere along the lines these two creative art directors and Miyazaki all rubbed their brain cells together and came up with this like European steampunk futuristic old world
Hmm.
that all stemmed from this novel that I'll say, I'll take a step back. So it all stems from this novel, but one thing that I think we all agreed on in the book club is that there was a lack of world building in the book, but we were all
Yes.
okay with it because of the foundation we had from the movie. So until the
Mm-hmm.
question was brought up during discussions, none of us really realized that there was a lack of world building happening in the novel.
Yep.
But upon reflection, yeah, like it was really just kind of like up to our own imagination what things looked like. And I think to Miyazaki's credit, like he kind of ran with that. Like the only thing that
Mm-hmm.
I think that they spent a lot of time describing, which wasn't a lot of time at all, was whales,
Yeah.
which was not included.
Yeah.
So I think that piece is really interesting as well. Um, and then going back through some of the notes that we had, yeah, there was the castle gliding,
Mm-hmm.
Howl knowing that she was young, and then the other major one is that I think maybe the futuristic piece played into this as well was the
Mm-hmm.
fact that Miyazaki added a whole ass war into
Yeah.
into the movie that did not exist in the book either.
Yeah, and it was because he was so obsessed with and upset with the Iraqi war that was going on at the
Yep.
time
Hmm.
that he wanted to speak on it in his own way. And I know those of us who in the book club, there were some people who had read the book before
Hmm.
and they really knew about that. And speaking for myself, I knew about it just because I had read things previously like that were comparing the book and the movie. But once you actually read the book, it is such a stark difference with this war.
Yeah, because the war feels like the why for the movie.
Yes.
And so to think through the book, it doesn't have like that piece. Like the what's happening is really more
Hmm.
the Witch of the Waste Frankensteining herself a manses, and that's
And
pretty much it.
yeah. Well, that is the motivator, I would say, for the book because she kidnaps the wizard Solomon and the prince, who in the movie is the turnip, and he's not in the movie as a turnip man. But she kidnaps those two people, and that's the whole thing why Hal sends Sophie to the castle because he doesn't want to go look for these people. He doesn't care. He's got to go play rugby with the Burrows. He's got more important things to worry about. And in the movie, it's the war. The war is the whole motivating factor, whereas in the book, it's these two missing people. And I don't even remember if there's a mention of a war or if it's just these two people are missing and it's concerning.
I think it was just concerning.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like yeah, like you said in the movie, the turnip man turns into a prince, and the prince is like, oh my gosh, you saved me. Oh, wait, you're already spoken for? Okay, I guess I'll go tell Papa to end the war. And that's it.
He even looks like he would say papa. He's got that like blonde, puffy, curly poodle boy hair.
Papa,
Papa, I have returned.
please end the war. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daddy.
So you brought up a good point about the turnip guy, because that I think was, I mean, it's not like a huge plot difference, but it functionally makes a huge difference, right? So in the movie, everyone's used to seeing the doll man turn out of the pumpkin guy. But in the book, the turnip is you described it earlier as a familiar, really, because was it Wizard?
Mhm.
Wizard.
Wizard Solomon before he like got extra ripped apart. So slight backtrack. As you said, the Witch of the Waste is trying to assemble the perfect man, and she's taking parts of these different men, and she takes parts from the prince that is missing and takes parts from Wizard Solomon and puts them together to make this headless body. And in the book, she wants Howl's head. She doesn't want the rest of that man. She just wants his head. And so the wizard Solomon, before he's ripped to shreds, completely loses consciousness. he utilizes his magic to kind of breathe life into this turnip scarecrow and is like, look, I'm about to get ripped to a million pieces. I need you to find my body parts, put me back together so I can stop the Witch of the Waste from doing this. And that's why the turnip head is following Howl and everybody in the in the book, because he knows one of the body parts is in Howl's castle. Nobody else knows this, but Turnip Head knows, and he's trying to get to that. And poor Sophie the entire time is absolutely terrified of this thing when all he's trying to do in the grand scheme of things is help.
Right. So, two things I want to emphasize here. One, I'm going to put up a picture, and it's going to be of, like, turnip face guy from the movie, and then the turnip head the way that it would have been imagined in the book, because the whole bit in the book is that Sophie is terrified of this thing. She is running from it. She's like, leave me alone. I don't want any of that here. And you have to imagine that it's just like a straight up turnip with a face carved in it, and it's been out in the sun. It's been baking. It's like the eyes are sunken in. Like, it's a mess. So I want to call attention to that because I do want to share that photo with everyone. The second thing I want to talk about is the Witch of the Waste. Can you really blame her?
Right?
Like, she's just like, oh, he's got nice legs. Like, oh, look at his body. And then, like, oh, Hal has such a pretty face. It would look so good on this other, like, these other perfect pieces that I've, like, picked personally for myself. Like, it can't be but so mad at a girl.
And another spoiler alert, she's actually building the body not as a boyfriend, but the demon that she has possessing her heart, like Calcifer is in tune with Howl's, that demon is looking for a new body because the Witch of the Waste is falling apart. So technically the demon is like, I'm gonna be fine when this is done. I'm gonna have all these nice pieces. And the whole time you're thinking, oh, she's just trying to build a man. No, she's not. I mean, she is, but not for her.
Yeah, like, she's building a man, but really it's the demon building himself a new body. And so, yeah, so that part did get a little bit complicated in the book as you start to dissect, like, what's really happening and why it's happening. But circling back, yeah, there's no war. Miyazaki was just trying to make a statement. It went over a lot of people's heads, but it's fine. He also just really likes airplanes, which brings me to my next point, that Howl is not a bird, never was a bird, never will be a bird in the book. I'm sorry to all of the bird lovers out there.
He does go through some transformations. The slime scenario happens. He attends a funeral and has to go incognito, so he puts on a costume to make himself look like a different person, but there is no bird in the book at all whatsoever.
No birds. We like to make fun of Mim, one of the other hosts that's been on the show, because she gave us a list of her simps, and there was, hand to God, like 3 or 4 characters on this 10-character list that all had some sort of bird form. And so, sorry, Mim, no birds for you in this book. You have a birdless Howl.
Not to throw you under the bus, girl, but no feathers.
Some other stuff that I know we wanted to talk about was Sophie's magic. So, like, yeah, Howl had gone to the funeral and he disguised himself, but he's got kind of like 2 go-to outfits that he wears. He kind of gravitates towards one, and it's because Sophie keeps, like, cutting up his shit. She's like, I don't remember why, but at one point she, like, turns one of his jackets into, like, 100 different triangles, which might be, like, pseudo-inspiration for, like, the Argyle look that he gets in the movie. But in the book, it is triangles. It is blue. There's no pink, but it's, like, kind of silvery sparkly.
And, like, big, baggy, long sleeves really, that he, like, can tie behind himself.
Flowy, like, witch sleeves is how I would describe it, like the big hoop ones. But the caveat is that like Sophie's slowly falling for Howl, right? Like
Hmm.
she reluctantly to herself is
Yeah.
like, no, like he's just a womanizer, like
Hmm.
he is just trying to get every woman, and she's like mumbling and grumbling this to herself as she's mending this man's clothes, not realizing that she herself has this power to bring
Hmm.
things to life with her words. So as she's muttering about how he's attracting all these women and how he's, luring them in and stuff, she's really willing it as she's sewing together his
Hmm.
sweater. So then when he wears these sweaters, they're imbued with magic to attract more women.
Hmm.
And so she's like, I don't remember at what point she realizes it, but she's like, "Oh, I have to get this shirt. I have to get these clothes off of him. I have to get him out of this sweater." And unsuccessful. I mean, it's like his favorite shirt, and he's
Hmm.
like, "What are you doing? Why do you keep ruining my clothes? Like, you wretched old woman." Meanwhile, he knows that she's a young lady. Like, he's already said
Hmm.
that, but he's still constantly teasing her about being an old woman. Like, he's like, I don't know, maybe she likes it. Um,
Maybe she's into that.
yeah, like, all right, fine. If that's what you're into, I'll play along. Whatever. Just take care of me when I'm sick. Typical Howl. Um, so then she's like trying to put together a sweater. She finally gets one together, right? And it's like way too small.
Hmm.
And then Michael's like, "Oh, don't worry. I have got the spell for this. It makes things bigger. I've got this in the bag." And she's like, "Okay." So he casts a spell. They stop the spell and like, "All right, sweet. The sweater looks great." She's like, "Dope. I'm going to run it upstairs for him to wear. It's all fixed. We're good." He comes out, and this is all in the book, right? And he's like standing at the top of the stairs, and the sleeves just drape all the way to the bottom of the stairs, and he's like, "Woman, what did you do to my clothes? Stop messing with my shit." And I wish that scene were in the movie, because that, I
Hmm.
feel like, despite how noble they are, it could have been a very early on scene for like old Sophie to like be getting the
Yeah.
hang of things, and to like accidentally, ask for help, or accidentally spill like an enlargement potion or something on one of his outfits, and then I could just see him like stomping out like with the
Hmm.
pants way too long, sleeves way too long. And I thought that would have been like a really cute ad in the book. Like it could have been baked in, because I really would have liked to have seen
Yeah.
that piece animated.
Yeah, and it's also why their hat shop is so popular because Sophie,
Yes.
excuse me, I had hiccups. She's in there making these hats, and somebody comes in asking for the exact same hat that she made someone else that got them money, got them a husband, got them all this stuff. But that's what Sophie was thinking about when she was making that hat for
Hmm.
that person. So when she gives this person who comes in asking for a similar hat another hat, it doesn't do the same thing because that's not what Sophie was thinking about. And the staff, her walking stick that she gets when she first turns into an old woman in the book, she speaks life into it and is talking to it throughout the entirety of the book. And at one point, they encounter Howl's his mentor, and she's talking to the mentor, and the mentor is mentioning that's how Sophie figures out that she has the powers, is because the mentor's like, "Oh yeah, I saw what you did to his clothes. That was really clever. Like it's very subtle." And Sophie's like, "I didn't do anything." And she goes, "Then why is your walking stick so powerful and all this other stuff?" And Sophie is like, "Oh, Sophie very casually, very nonchalant, is just like, "Oh, I guess I have powers. That explains stuff."
Yeah, she like legit got a walking stick and then talked to it and imbued it with so much magic accidentally that she essentially made herself a wand.
And it's an important piece at the end of the novel. Like it comes in handy later on at the end of the book.
Right.
But she just is like so accepting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, yeah, I guess I can do
She's like, you
that.
know what? That checks out
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Um, One other piece that I wanted to talk about was the, not to like totally jump off topic, because I think I could talk a bit more about her talking into things, like
Right.
how she was like telling the turnip, like, no, 1,000 miles per hour faster, go away from me. And so, the
And
turnip man,
Calcifer.
yeah,
She convinces Calcifer to do stuff that Hal is like, how are you making bacon right now? What is happening? Like he comes home and he smells the bacon and Michael's like, oh, she yelled at Calcifer and made him do it. And Hal's like, excuse me? She did what? To who?
that guy. Oh, that's a good point. We talked about like how certain people look different, but we didn't talk about Calcifer yet.
Oh yeah, and that's a major one.
Yeah, he's just like, in the movie everyone knows like he's just this little cutie pie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, he's got like like
He's
demon
scary.
fang teefies. He's like green blue most of the time as opposed to being like the red orange that you see in the
Mm-hmm.
movie.
He has
So
eyebrows.
he has eyebrows. It's big spooky. I mean,
You
he's
did
still he's a cutie
also
pie.
He is. He's a sweet boy. You did mention, though, in the art book you have for the movie,
Hmm.
there is a specific still from when Hal is
Yes.
moving the castle into the hat shop, and it's showing Calcifer, and he resembles how he would look all the time in the novel. And it's not super scary as he's described in the novel, but it's more accurate, I would say, to what he should, air quotes, look like.
Yeah, I'll bookmark this so that I can include a bit from that scene as well, because you're right. It does look very similar to kind of, and I'll put the clip up as well. But it's the blues and the greens and the sharp teeths.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll definitely want to put a clip up for everyone because that's going to be more true to what he looked like in the book based on just descriptions.
Yeah.
So that's a good ad. The other thing that I want to talk about that was like jarring for me in the book was the shooting stars.
Yeah.
So the way that they get to like the shooting stars is like, so Sophie's helping Michael with what he thinks is a spell that he's supposed to be putting together for someone, right? And it's like a riddle that he can't figure out, and it has to do with like catching shooting stars. So they
Mm-hmm.
go out and they're trying to catch a shooting star, and they get one, and it's like, no, please let me die, please
Yes.
kill me, and it's like begging to die.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, because like when I picture the shooting stars in the movie, I'm like, oh, we're like vibing and like it's still a bit darker, but I'm like, no, these guys, like, they live their life to fall to earth and perish, and they know that, and that's what they want as the
Mm-hmm.
shooting star, right? And I thought that that was interesting. I don't know, I feel like it was, they still tried to include shooting stars a bit in the movie, but it was not to that extent.
Yeah, and in the movie, Calcifer is still a shooting star as he is in the book. But like you said, they don't really touch on that in the movie and how kind of tragic it is that Hal took that away
Mm-hmm.
from Calcifer. Like you said, his whole purpose is to be a shooting star. His whole purpose is to fall to earth and die. And Hal snatches him up and is like, "No, we're not going to do that today. I'll make a deal with you and we're going to go through this life together, but you're not dying."
Yeah, I think I remember in the book too, like, I think when Michael had caught the shooting star, he was like, I'm not gonna hurt you. And they're like,
Mhm.
please, please kill me. Like,
Yeah.
and he's like, I'm not gonna hurt you. What do you mean? Like, I've saved you. And they're like, no, you haven't. Like, they make a really big deal about how, like, the
Mhm.
interfering with what is their life, goal, or whatever their life mission is, and interfering with it and
Mhm.
not letting them fall to the earth and perish is like, it's detrimental, it's painful for them to not go through that.
Yeah. It's kind of messed up.
It was, and so that's what I mean, like, that was something that was pretty jarring for me to read. But I
Mhm.
wondered if that same if it was meant to be implied kind of in the film, or what the film implication was, like, in a difference, because there were the shooting stars because of Calcifer
Mhm.
and stuff, but it was just a totally different vibe.
And that scene also translates very differently in both scenarios because in the book, like you said, that's when they are trying to work on the spell and they see this whole scenario happen. And that's the interaction that we have. But what in the movie, when we find out about Calcifer being a shooting star and all this other stuff, that's in the past. Like Sophie has literally gone into the past and is interfering with time. And that's why when Hal sees her, he says, "Oh, I've been looking everywhere for you."
Mm-hmm.
That whole scenario doesn't happen in the books
No.
or a book.
Right. Yeah, we kind of like traded that for the whole, like, oh, Hal's from Wales, he's got a
Yeah.
sister and some nibblings, and um the nibblings teachers is in love with one of the missing guys that Hal's supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
trying to find. But then the sweater that Sophie made is like maybe making the teacher fall for Howl, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like
And
this.
Sophie's getting jealous and doesn't want, she like
Yeah.
kicks her out of the house.
Yeah, so that was kind of a bit of the trade-off, I think.
Yeah. And it does fit more with the vibe that Miyazaki
Mhm.
was going with, obviously. But I just really would have loved to have a version where we get to go to Wales. I want someone to adapt this again, and it could still be animated. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just want to see Wales. I want to see, like, his nibblings think he's a deadbeat. And they just don't have time for Uncle Howl. And I loved that. Like his nephew was playing video games and Hal's like, "How's my favorite buddy?" And he's like, I don't know who you're talking about because it's not me.
Yeah, I want the second round adaptation of this to start off with like a PhD student Howl going to
Mm-hmm.
rugby practices and just being like, "Man, PhD sucks. Magic cool though." And then like the next scene be him like dropping out and putting together this like floating house and catching a shooting star and being like, "Magic is dope." And then like
I just imagine him doing this on like a bender. Like he is blitzed out of his mind. He gets drunk in a pub and he's like, "Guys, I'm just gonna go catch a falling star." And they're like, "Sure you are, buddy." And he's like, "Bet."
But to be fair, that could happen because the whole shooting star bit comes from like an old poem.
Yeah, the curse that was on him
Mm-hmm.
mentions this poem that was from Wales, which his nephew was doing like an analysis for homework. And it was worded so strangely that Sophie and Michael thought it was a spell. And Hal's like, "No, it's not, you idiots. It's a poem. And now I'm bad. I have to exert effort today."
Right, but like that's the point, right? So you can imagine like drunk ass Howl, Rugby Howl, coming across this like poem in the library while he's not studying for his PhD, and then he's reading about the shooting star, and he's like, "That's it. That's what I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
do instead of all of this." And then it like pans to him like hitting on a bunch of women in some other random town somewhere, seemingly in the past, but also still in the present. Look
That's
at
my
that.
man's.
They had two art directors on the Howl's Moving Castle for Miyazaki, and we probably only need one to make our version.
We could do it with stick figures. Let's go.
All we need is a couple of stick figures and a turnip.
Oh god, we have to like leave the turnip out in the sun for a week and then we can bring it back in, stick it on a stick.
Gross. Gross. Oh
He
my
hobbles
gosh.
about the screen.
This kind of lends me to think though, because I didn't do proper research, but are all of the other Miyazaki films original or are they adaptations? Because I think the the author of this book of Howl's Moving Castle,
Mhm.
she also wrote um another book which I had originally confused for Castle in the Sky because the name is so similar.
Mhm.
Castle in the Air. You can see why I
Yes.
would be confused, right? So the author of Howl's Moving Castle has another book called Castle in the Air. Nothing to do with Castle in the Sky. But are any of the other Miyazaki films adaptations? I'm not sure.
The one, why am I not remembering the name of it? Oh gosh. The one about the guy who
Oh,
made this specific kind of plane.
oh, the most recent one. Well, not
That will
obviously not the Boy and the Heron one, the
no.
other one.
Yeah, The Boy and the Heron is loosely based off of a book,
Mm-hmm.
also like a similar title. The one about the planes, and I don't know why I can't remember that right now, but that one is more of like a fantasized biopic.
Yes.
Totoro, I believe, is completely original to Miyazaki.
The Wind Rises.
The Wind Rises, thank you. And I think, gosh, there's so many.
While we're on the topic, The Wind Rises, it is listed as a war/romance. I refute that. I wholeheartedly disagree with this being a romance because this man only romanced planes. If you tell me that the romance is between this man and a plane, I'm like, yes, you are right. This is romance. But if you're telling me it's with the woman who he marries in this, absolutely not. Because he straight up chooses planes over spending the last moments of his wife's life with her. Absolutely not. I will hunt your ass.
My strange addiction, planes.
Miyazaki, I'm looking at you.
Plot twist.
How many Miyazaki films have planes in them unnecessarily? All of them.
Most of them. I was going to say, I was just thinking of The Secret World of Ariete, and I believe that one was based off of a book. Oh, it was based off The Borrowers, duh.
Oh.
It was based off the book The Borrowers, and I don't think Ariete has a plane in it, but I don't remember if they end up flying like a model plane or something, but Kiki's Delivery Service has a plane. That little airship bike thing that that Tombo and the kids are working on.
Ponyo. It's got the submarine turns into a plane thing, right?
Yep.
All right, I'm looking up
Is
Ariete
Pom
planes.
Poko? Is that one Miyazaki? I know Pom Poko is Ghibli, but is that specifically Miyazaki?
No.
Oh, not Pom Poko. Porco Rosso. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm. All I know is Miyazaki's obsessed with planes. It's
Porco
fine.
Rosso was Hayao Miyazaki, and Porco Rosso is a pig in a plane. I'm just gonna give me 1 second. How many Miyazaki movies have planes in them? There's like whole Reddit pages dedicated to this.
I'm not surprised. What are they saying?
Why are there so many flying scenes in Hayao Miyazaki's films? The simple answer:
He loves planes.
he likes flying.
He likes planes.
Everyone has their vice, and this man's is planes.
Mm-hmm. He did not get enough planes in his other films, so he had to make The Wind Rises so that he could have a whole ass movie just dedicated to planes.
They all have, I feel like, even if it's not a direct plane, it's like some kind of flying ship too, because like
Mhm.
in Castle in the Sky, there is like a little flying ship kind of
There's
thing.
so many
In
different types of
Nausicaa,
flying
the
ship
Valley of the
things.
Wind, there's flying ships. Like so many of these. Okay, that's what we need to research next time: is how many Miyazaki movies have a flying ship in them.
Wait. There's one that might not have any. Princess Mononoke.
I think they had. Didn't they have like a? What is that? Like a where you could jump off something and you have like the parasail kind of thing. You know what I'm
Oh.
talking about? I can't remember. I could be lying out my butt. Totoro didn't have a plane in it, but Totoro can fly.
And
little
the
top.
bus. And the bus.
Yeah, the cat bus flies through the sky
Yeah.
too.
This is me formally challenging Miyazaki to make a film where nothing flies.
Okay, Mononoke might not. I'm looking really quickly through some art. It's been a minute since I've seen Mononoke. And I mean, Boy and the Heron, herons fly. Kiki's Delivery Service.
That's their whole bit. That's their whole bit. They're birds.
They're birds. Another bird.
He
Another
loves
bird.
Birds.
But in what about in Spirited Away? Did anything fly? Because like Kiki's Delivery Service, excluding the flying thing that they make,
Yeah.
Kiki's a witch and has a broom.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody? Kohaku.
I was like, there's a whole
Kaku.
dragon. There's a whole dragon that
Can
flies.
fly. All right, everyone. Sorry about this tangent about Miyazaki and flying things, but
I will use this as an opportunity to pull up my notes on Ghibli Fest, because we've dedicated our
yes.
entire podcast episode to Miyazaki. So yeah, I want to talk about Ghibli Fest because this is something that we always say like, oh, it's near and dear to me, but something that my husband and I do every year is during Ghibli Fest, we try and see as many of the Ghibli films as we can in theaters. Even if we've seen them, I mean, we'll go back and see them again, especially like our favorite ones like Howl's and stuff. But we thoroughly enjoy Ghibli Fest. We get like the nice seats at the movie theater, you know, the ones that recline. They got the heated seats. They got the 8 different cup holders, and we'll just relax and hang out and just see these Ghibli films the way Ghibli
God
intended. Right.
The first time that I saw Totoro in theaters, and I will send you a picture of me. I've stated previously Totoro is my absolute favorite, but I'd only ever seen it on like DVD, VHS, this, that, and the other. The first time I saw it in theaters, I literally cried. And I had a Totoro dress on, and I brought in like a stuffed Totoro, and Mike got a picture of me, my husband, leaving the theater, and I'm crying because I was so happy.
Precious, precious baby. Yeah, I'm like looking through. I can't find like the official Ghibli TikTok page because I think that's where I had seen the full list of
I just sent you a graphic conveniently.
Ooh, oh yeah, this is the one that I had seen on TikTok, right? So, this graphic we'll put up, but basically, go if you've got time. They don't charge like full movie ticket prices for these either. Like these are discounted. Unfortunately, a lot of them are only offered for a couple of days. Like Whisper of the Heart is August 25th. And 27th.
And that one's so good. That's one of my favorites. I love Whisper of the Heart.
Howl's Moving Castle obviously is hosted quite a bit longer, September 26th through October 3rd. Kiki's
and
is a
it
few
runs
days.
for a good while. Like the entire Ghibli Fest runs from the end of April to the beginning of December. And the first one is Spirited Away, and that's April 27th to May 1st.
That is right around the corner. That will be like truly right around the corner from when this podcast will come out. So if you're watching this way late in the game, we are talking about Ghibli Fest 2024, but this is something that they do every year. And I love it. I'm going to try to knock a few more off this year that maybe I haven't gotten to see in theaters yet before. So like I haven't seen Arrietty yet. My husband's not a huge fan of that one. Go out, support your plane loving Miyazaki guy.
Yeehaw!
If you go to Ghibli Fest, count the number of planes that you see in each movie and message us.
Let us know how many planes there be.
Tell us how many planes you see.
Every time you see a plane, take a shot. Except don't die.
Oh my god. Is the Wind Rises on this? Please no. Are you trying to kill people?
Is it? Oh wait, hold on.
No.
No, it is not.
Good. I was like, T's out there trying to kill people.
Don't do it with that one. You will die.
It's a whole movie about planes.
Yeah, that one you just bring like a big gulp in that's just filled with vodka and you just take a little sippy. No, don't do that. Please don't do that.
We
You will
don't.
never see the light of day again.
You know, we love our listeners. We don't want them to die.
Please don't. I'm looking
Oh,
at the list, and I
yeah.
think just in general of what I've seen, I haven't seen when Marnie was there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I haven't seen The Cat Returns, and I haven't seen Pompoko or Princess Kaguya. But I've seen all of the other ones in some shape or form, like in the theater or at least on DVD or something like that. So I've only not seen 4 of those, so I take that as a badge of honor.
There you go. Yeah, I haven't seen any of those either. But like I said, my husband and I, we do this thing where at one point we decided we're like, all right, if you haven't seen a Ghibli movie, you only get to see it during Ghibli Fest because from now on, if you're gonna see it for the first time, it's gonna be in theaters.
Yeah.
So we're like chipping away at seeing the ones that we haven't seen
I
through
definitely
Ghibli
want to
Fest.
see Spirited Away in theaters. I've seen that. I think I have a VHS of that somewhere still. But that one I really want to see in theaters. That would be
That
awesome.
one I feel like would be
And
really good.
uh my husband's favorite is Princess Mononoke, so that
Mm-hmm.
would be pretty rad to see in theaters.
Yes, that one, and no planes in that one probably. So
No, don't quote us. We could be wrong. Either way, we could be wrong. That
fact
one
check
comes
us.
that one's going to be in theaters in mid-July. So,
Oh, am I gonna miss that one?
it's July 13th through 17th.
I might make it back in time. So the first 2 weeks of July, I'm gonna be in Japan.
Humble brag.
Um, so I think I get back on the 14th. So I'll
You might
probably,
make it. You might make it.
I might make it. But yeah, we've already seen Ponyo in theaters. I do want to see Whisper of the Heart in theaters, and that one's not long after
Mm-hmm.
my birthday. Oh, that's weird. Okay, so what they're doing is they're doing Whisper of the Heart, then the next day the cat returns, then
Mm-hmm.
Whisper of the Heart, and then the next day the cat returns.
And that makes sense because those two go together.
Yeah, that's cute. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Prince or not Princess Mononoke, Ponyo. I have a fun story about seeing Ponyo. It was only playing in one theater near us that was like 45 minutes away. And I wanted to take my husband as a surprise, like birthday thing. He was not going to know that our friends were all meeting us up there. But I was like, hey, we're going to go see Ponyo at this time. And we were running so late. I was so upset. I was about to cry. And he didn't understand why I'm so upset that we're going to miss this movie. He's like, we can see a different showtime. It's okay. And I'm like, no, we have to make it to this one. This is one we have to go to. We get there. We are walking in the theater. And he's like, don't we need to buy our tickets? And our friends jump from around the corner. They're like, no, we got them. Happy birthday. Let's go. And we were like, all of us just collectively start pushing him and running into the theater.
And he's like, oh, oh, hi, oh, ah.
Yeah, it was basically, hi, we love you, happy birthday, let's go.
Oh, that's cute though. I like that.
It was fun.
Oh, nice. So, I don't know that I could ever surprise my husband with anything like that because he's usually the one scheduling our movie dates because he's he's gonna listen to this podcast and he's gonna give me a hard time, but he's very particular when it comes to movie theater seats. He's a little
Mm,
princess, and he needs the cushy little. When I say like, oh, we've got the reclining seats with the heated,
mm,
butt pads and stuff, it's cause my husband.
mm-hmm.
And he'll throw this back on me and he'll say that I'm the particular one because I don't like going to movie theaters that don't serve Coke products. And
I've never paid attention. Because I'm not a big soda person.
oh,
I will drink whatever, if we're going to the movies, I will drink a soda that's available, but I'm like a water gal through and through.
so on that, the reason I like the Coke products is because they have the fancy Coke machines that have
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah.
lemonade and Powerade and stuff like that in them, where like the Pepsi ones are like literally just like you get Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, or Mountain Dew. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much it. And so that's why I'm
Is that like
like,
the Coca-Cola Freestyle or whatever? And you
yeah.
can add like the syrups into it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those are fun.
Yeah, so I like those, but they're mutually exclusive in that like a theater with comfortable seats does not carry Coke products. And so
Really?
yeah, at least not
That's
around
so
us.
weird. I was gonna say I need to check. There's so a lot of the theaters around where I live have upgraded, so they have the nice warm seats and they have the reclining. But I can only think of one that you walk up to and has it's the Coca-Cola Freestyle thing.
Hmm.
All the other theaters are still like giving you the soda from behind the counter, but I can't remember if they're like if they're Coke, if they're Pepsi or whatever.
Oh. Hmm. Yeah, no, I'm so yeah, we alternate, but I think for the most part we've just decided that we'll go with the comfy seats and I'll just pack my own snacks.
That's why you need a big bag or big pockets. I have we did over the summer, we did Oppenheimer and Barbie all in one day. We did
As
Barbenheimer
God intended.
as God intended, and I was in my beautiful little rainbow dress, and I have a bag that is just large enough to fit two energy drinks in. So I slipped us two Alani's into my purse, and before we watched Barbie, and then before we went into Oppenheimer, I was like, "Here you go. Here's our second wind."
I wish so on that I wish that the instead of doing like the alternating days for
Hmm.
the Whisper of the Heart and the Cat Returns, I wish they were just offering it as a double feature for 4 days.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Because that's the only that I can see that. Oh wait, no, Secret World of Ariete and Marnie, they do that. It's June
Mm.
9th for Ariete, then 10th is Marnie, then back to Ariete for the 11th, and back to Marnie for the 12th.
Oh. Well,
Oh,
so
and Nausicaa and Castle in the Sky are doing the same thing.
did do those go together?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, they are the like first of the Ghiblis,
Yeah.
but they don't go together at all.
Yeah, okay. So interesting.
Yeah, that's odd that they didn't just do the two and two for like, back to back for the same thing.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. Go out, enjoy Ghibli Fest, enjoy either your Pepsi or your Coke products, whatever your personal preference is.
We won't judge you to your face.
No, I get judged enough for this from my husband. So if you like Pepsi and Mountain Dew, you go to those theaters and you drink as much Pepsi and Mountain Dew as your heart can take.
Hey, our whole thing is you love what you love and who you love. So if you love Pepsi, go get a Pepsi. If you love Coke, go get a Coke. We
Yeah.
respect that.
And if there's a movie theater that has comfy seats, but they don't carry Coke products and you prefer Coke products, your husband's just gonna make fun of you. It's fine. It's just the way of life.
It's
And we
it
all make
it
sacrifices.
is what it is, you know.
It is, but so
I'm
that's
Italian, I'm allowed to make the Italian hand.
callback to our
Yeah,
whole episode
whatever.
where we spend like 10 minutes talking about your broken Italian arms.
Uh,
But yeah, so this has been Girls, Gays, Animes takes on Miyazaki's Howl's Moving Castle. If you enjoyed our podcast, like, subscribe, and follow our channel. Uh, you can also find us on TikTok, Instagram. We're not on LinkedIn. Don't look for
no.
us on Twitter or X either because we're not really there. But just engage in our comment section if you have topics that you want us to cover, if you have found something false in what we have said, please correct
Yeah, let us
us.
know.
Yeah, we're not
If you,
we are not experts. We are live recording most of the time. I do some mild editing, but if we're looking something up, we're looking something up. And so if we say something wrong, correct us. Throw it in the comments. We will thank you. But
yeah, and if you're going to any like conventions or anything like that, let us know. We'd like to know what you're doing in a very uncreepy and very not stalker kind of way.
Yes, because we're also going to conventions and we're hanging out and we're being cool. And I'll wrap this episode up with my excitement for my loose cosplays that I'm doing at the upcoming SumiCon. If you're at SumiCon, you will have recognized me by the time this podcast comes out as sexy Bucciarati from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure one day, and the next day I will be sexy maid Choso from Jujutsu Kaisen. So these are my attempts at having cosplays that did not require me to wear wigs, because I don't want to wear wigs in Las Vegas. It is going to be hot enough.
Will you wear wigs? No.
I will not be wearing a wig. So I will be very recognizable, with the exception of just being in a general cosplay. So if you see us out in the wild, say something. If you see us, say something.
You see something?
Say something. That's it for us here on Girls Gaze Animes. Until next time, everyone. Love you. Ooh, ooh.
Love you. Bye-bye. Mwah.